Hello everyone, happy weekend. Thank you for being here with me today. We are going to work on something special. We are working on Heike's painting. If you may remember, I did a giveaway for reaching 10,000 subscribers and Heike won. So Heike, this is for you. I hope you enjoyed watching the process. She has already received this, so she has this painting already in her possession. Now she gets to watch how it was being made. I am working on the Haugen watercolor paper, which is this one here. But I've taken it off the block and I will be working on the back side. This is the front side currently, and what I want to do is I want to wet the paper so that when I start working on it and I apply water to the underside, it's not gonna curl up on me. So I have found that this process works really well for me. So we're just gonna quickly do that and then we can turn it over. All right, so as you can see, the paper has now curling this way, but that's okay because we're gonna move it, turn it over and work on the back side. Now I'm going to spray the paper first because I want my surface to be wet so I can place my colors down and work intuitively. And then once the paper is wet, it will curl the other side again. All right, I'm also going to put some water in my gold and it's almost gone. We are going to be working with the Rycote Art Nouveau set today, and I will probably be using the billiard green, maybe a little bit of the shadow green, the green gold, and the saffron yellow. And depending on how it's going, how light or dark it will turn out, I might use a little bit of the Quinn gold from the Daniel Smith watercolors, but we'll see how it goes. This one is nice and bright, so I think we should be fine. See, now the paper has flattened out for me. This paper can take a lot of water, which makes me very happy. So right now we have quite a bit of water on there, and that's exactly what I want. I will be using, let me see if the gold has, yeah, I can now use that gold. I like to use the gold in the beginning, even though I have to reapply it later. But at least it's already there, and in case I forget it, which I hope I won't, then at least we'll have a little bit of shimmer already down. So her favorite colors are the greens and yellows, and that is part of the reason why I wanted to ask you guys what colors were your favorites, so that I have a little bit of a reference as to, you know, what you're looking for. All right, and we're gonna take the saffron yellow. It looks green, but it's actually a really nice light green, almost yellow. All right, let's see. I might start using a little bit of the green gold as well. The Rycote watercolors activate fairly quickly, so I don't need to work it too long. All right, I'm gonna add a little bit of that billiard green now. we want wispy edges, so I'm gonna keep applying some water and work those edges. I'm also gonna be using probably the ivy green. I think the ivy green and the saffron yellow will match very well. At this point, I'm not sure yet what direction it's going to go, so all of this is very intuitive and I will just play it by ear. Once it's dry, we'll have a better idea of what it's gonna look like. At this point, I can add a little bit more of that yellow. Just highlighting those areas a little bit more. As you may know, I tend to overdo it with the darker colors. It just makes it harder to doodle on top when the background is dark, so that's why I like to keep it on the lighter side. But I also then gives me the chance to maybe add some of the colored pencils as well. And I have a nice new set of colored pencils that I probably will be using. All right, I'm gonna get a piece of paper to mop up some of that color that is now starting to get a little bit muddy. It's all part of the process. I need enough water for the colors to move, and sometimes that means that the colors muddy up a little bit, and that's okay. I like what's happening in this corner here, so I kind of want to bring in just a little bit more color. I'm just gonna make sure I dilute this color a little bit off the paper. All right, so we have quite a bit of dark up here and not so much down here, so that we could leave it like that, but I might just bring in a little bit more. Oh wait, that's the wrong one. Here, hold on. Whoop. Let's use this green. I don't want it too dark, I don't want it too dominant, so we'll see how it works. Alright, I don't think I need Queen Gold at this point. I think the saffron yellow is doing a good job. Didn't like that part. I'm gonna get rid of it. Alright, so I have quite a bit of that nice billiard green here, and I just feel like it needs a little bit more of that. You may notice that the gold is almost gone, and that's okay. We can always reapply it. Also, I will probably add some more gold when it has dried a little bit more, as well as a few more splatters of the regular colors. Alright, let me get some more of that green gold in. a little bit more of the saffron yellow. All right, we're getting somewhere, huh? I think I'm gonna cover that yellow here with the green gold. I might need just a little bit more of that billiard green just because I am missing a little bit of that dark value. And that may or may not be a mistake. But I guess we'll find out. Forgot I had some of that diluted green already over here. Generally, I take my time unless I hit it right in the beginning. But, you know, I like this process. I enjoy it, so we will figure out what it needs and how much more work it needs to get to a background that I enjoy. This is kind of cool. We'll see how that dries. How about we just leave it like that? You know me, I say how about we leave it, and then I come back and keep working on it. So that's entirely possible. But let me add a little bit more of that gold. Maybe just here. Oops, now I added. There's silver in here now, which we didn't want, but that's okay. It might be a cool effect, who knows. I don't want to spray any more water at this point, so I'm just gonna soften up those edges with the brush. If I add gold in here now in the middle, it's not gonna do anything or very much. So I will wait until it has dried, and there's some of that silver in here now. The camera will probably pick it up because it's very like pigmented, but that's okay. All right, I will leave it at that. We're gonna let it all dry. Hopefully it is kind to us and it will dry beautifully. And when that is done, I will be back. All right, this is how it's dried. So let's see if we can give it a little bit more interest with a few drops of the billiard green and maybe a couple more. I just have some of that on my palette here. And I'm wondering if we should do a couple more of that ivy green as well. Kind of want a couple bigger ones. Let's see. Yes. Okay, it's not where I wanted them to fall, but that looks like where it's going to go. One more. Excellent. Okay, it has fully dried now, and we are ready to embellish it with some fun doodles. I have sort of an idea of where this is probably gonna go. Well, where I want to start out, let's put it that way. And the direction I think is going to stay this way, just because of the way the paint has settled and the dots are situated. I mean, I could potentially, well, now that I'm looking at it, maybe I should switch it. I thought I was dead on having it this way. Did I ever move it this way? I don't know. And could I potentially work with it this way? You know what? Let's switch it up. Let's have it vertical instead of horizontal. Split decision. Let's do it. I am also going to use my sepia pens first. I might still add a little bit of black, but I think those colors just lend themselves really well for the brown pens instead of the black ones. So I will start out with the sepia ones, and then I'll probably come in and intensify some of the lines a little bit more with the black pens. But yeah, let's start with the brown ones first. I'm probably not gonna talk the whole way through my doodling process, just because I decided to leave most of the footage in this video, just so that Heike can really see how it all came together. I felt like today was a good day to keep the video as raw as possible. I am speeding it up a little bit here and there. The doodling process is sped up, and then also the shading process is sped up as well, just because otherwise it would truly take forever. But everything else I have pretty much left in. Most of my thinking and, you know, moving around on the paper is visible for all to enjoy. And so for this reason, the video today is quite a bit longer than my usual uploads. I hope you don't mind, but like I said, it was a good opportunity to show pretty much everything. Once I realized that vertical was the position I wanted to go with this background, the doodling process came pretty easily, I have to say. It's almost like there is a light bulb that goes off and you know exactly what to do. So I knew that I wanted to outline the bigger drops, but it felt like it needed almost 2 levels, and so that's what I went with. As usual, I am starting out with a thin liner pen, and then once I figure out where the lines are going and what the overall look is gonna look like, I will then switch to thicker pens, and it just makes it easier to fill in certain spaces or to highlight certain lines a little bit more. I ended up not needing the black pen. I don't think that sepia brown was enough, and because I had used the thicker pens, it gave it enough contrast. I'm gonna go ahead and let you continue watching the doodling process, and I will back once I start shading in. Alright, so now I have most of my doodles down, and at this point I like to switch it up a little bit and start with the shading. I am still very happy with this set of colored pencils. There is just so many shades to choose from. I picked out some greens and some yellows. I ended up using the black as well, and I think I also used a very dark blue. I decided to speed up the shading process because it takes forever. And still, with the sped up version, it took quite a while. But I don't usually leave everything in, and so hopefully you will still get the feel of how long it took and how often I switched out the pencils to give the background different gradients. I have to say, now that I have discovered that I like the pencils on top of the watercolors, I don't mind that the backgrounds dry a little bit lighter than when you first put down the colors. It gives me an opportunity to shade it or even change the color completely by adding the pencils. So that is a big plus for me. I still want enough structure in the background, so it's just easier for me to start the doodling process or kind of figure out where I'm going. If it's just one blank color, I don't have much to go by. So that is still an issue with the colors drying a little bit lighter, especially when you have colors that are very similar. But the fact that I can go on top of the watercolor and actually change the hue completely with the pens is great to know. Of course, there's always a multitude of ways that you can achieve a certain look. You could also use more watercolor on top of the already existing watercolor to shade more. You can use markers. You could even just use pencil and give it shading that way, like a regular, graphite pencil is what I mean. But I like the texture that the pencils give, especially when you work on paper that has more tooth to it. You get just a little bit more interest in a piece that you probably wouldn't get with a marker or more watercolor, unless you add maybe some salt to it, to the watercolor, or you put saran wrap on top. Then you would also achieve more texture that way. You could use stencils. I mean, there's so many ways, but specifically shading, I think I just love that look, and I love the texture that it gives the piece. Alright, I'm gonna let you continue watch the shading process, and then I will be back a little bit later on. You can see I'm switching back to my pens, and I like doing that once I get a clearer picture of where the piece is going. So now that I have the most of the shading done, I look at the piece usually and I determine what else does it need. And it just needed a little bit more of a focal point, and so I decided to use a thicker pen to outline those splatters a little bit more. And also with the shading process of this part, I realized that the lines kind of disappeared a little bit, and so I went over them a little bit more. And then after that, I usually go in with putting dots down or adding some more interest. Sometimes I keep it more simple. I don't want to overdo it with the doodles, but because this was a special piece and it was going someplace, I decided that it just needed a little bit more than what I would probably usually do. And this is what, I would call fine-tuning. I go over the lines again. If they are a little bit too crooked or they don't stand out as much as I want, I intensify certain lines. I go back to shading. I go back to drawing lines. I just fill in wherever I feel like it could use a little bit more. This part is fun for me because it not only tells me that I'm almost done, but it also, if I take my time, it also really starts making the piece pop. You saw me showing you some acrylic paint, and I diluted the paint a little bit because I didn't want it to be super present, super dominating on this piece. At first I was going to leave it white, but then I decided to go over it with more gold because I felt like there was only gold around the edges of the painting, and although you could see the gold has settled into the nooks and crannies of the paper tooth, it still didn't feel quite enough. I did like just having it white because it almost felt like those were ghost bubbles of the other ones that are up there, but ultimately I decided that it needed a little bit more sparkle. I could have just gone in with the gold and that would have worked out fine, but because I at first thought maybe I would leave it white, that's why I started with the white. The gold probably popped off the page just a little bit more because I gave it that white background, but it was fairly diluted, and so if anything, it just smoothed out the paper a little bit for that gold to go on top. That paper was pretty absorbent, and so you could see I have to go over the white multiple times to make it stand out a little bit more. I probably diluted it too much, and so there was quite a bit of water in that paint, and so it took a couple of tries to get it to stand out. And so now here you can see me add the gold, and I'm really happy that I decided to use the gold because in the end, it really did need a little bit more sparkle on that page. As you can see, I decided I wasn't quite done with the doodling. It needed a little bit more either contrast or more interest, and those lines looked a little bit bare. So I decided to add those messy lines here and then in another spot further down, and that happens. Again, I look at the piece, I see, if I add more, will it add to it or will it take away from certain spots? And maybe I could have left it, but again, because this was a special piece, I decided to add as much as I could possibly add. And once the dotting tools come out, you can be sure that we are almost done. And this is basically my final addition. Sometimes I add it a little bit sooner in certain spots, depending on how I feel and whether or not I'm stuck. That always gives me a little bit of breathing time and time to mull the piece over and think about my next steps. But generally, the dotting tools come out at the end of me being done. And if you are new here, first of all of my tools and paints and everything that I've used, I try to list below the video. There's a drop down menu and I give you a little bit more of a description of what I'm doing in this video, and then further down you can find the list of everything that I am using with links to an Amazon affiliate page, and I will make a small commission from that link if you choose to purchase something, and usually it's a couple cents, but it adds up, and every now and then I get to pay with that money for new materials. So everything I make on my Amazon affiliates account goes straight back into buying new materials. And so if you are curious what I am using to make those dots, they're also listed down below, and they are basically dotting tools that you can either use for clay, and some people use them for nail art. They have multiple uses, and those are the ones that I'm using. I find the process of dotting very therapeutic for me. I like it a lot better than using a pen. I don't know if it's that going back into the paint, dipping and getting more of the paint and then adding it again. That process helps me. I don't like the constant dotting that I have to do with a pen. So I just enjoy this part, and also it gives it a little bit more sparkle towards the end, And I can also intensify certain areas a little bit more that way, depending on what color I use.
Friends, we are almost done. I decided I needed to give these little guys a little bit more character, and I needed them to pop off the page a little bit more. So I went in and shaded them as well, and they kind of looked like creatures with eyeballs. So I decided to give them some eyelashes. It's just silly. What can I say? And that's why I like making these paintings, because you can add a few funny things sometimes, and it gives hopefully people a chuckle when they see it. I'm adding just a little bit more gold, and then I'm basically done. I decided to give this painting several coats of wax to seal it, and you will see that shortly, and I also have that linked down below if you're curious what it is exactly. There's different ones, and my local craft store had this one available, so that's what I went with. The name escapes me at the moment, but it is also linked in the description box below. And I am honest, I only used this type of wax once before, but I like that it doesn't smell. I could have used a spray, but they just always smell quite a bit, and so using the wax really eliminates that. And also it's kind of fun to spread it all over the page. I was a little bit worried that it was going to smear, because the colors that I used were quite light, and I wasn't sure how it would interact with the pencils. It did take a little bit of that pencil off, but overall it worked really well, and in the end you can see it gave it a little bit of a sheen, not too much. And you can control that. You can go over it and really buff it. At the very end, after you have put down several layers of this wax, you can go ahead and buff it if you want and make it nice and shiny. I opted not to do that, but it still gave it quite a bit of a sheen, and I really liked the way it turned out in the end. And it seals the colors. It is light fast, light resistant, like it doesn't turn yellow over time, which is really nice. So here you see me, I apply it all over, and then I had to let it sit, and then I had to come back, and I'm not showing that here. This is all bundled together. So I put down the first layer, and then I buffed it a little bit, and then I put down a second layer, and you have to let it dry in between. So I let it dry about a day in between layers, and then at the last layer I went ahead and I buffed it. I buffed everything with a nice soft cloth, and then it was done, and it turned out really, really nice. And that is it, friends. We are done, and this is what the end result looks like. I am really happy with how it turned out, and I think Heike enjoyed it as well. You can find her framed piece now on her Instagram, which I also have linked below in the description box. So go ahead over there and give her a like, give her a comment, and let her know how you like it. And that is it for me for this week. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.